And we had had some success, but we had never gone to the big show. So as you might imagine, it was going to be a very exciting time for the city, for the team, for me. My 20th year as a practicing lawyer as well. And as you might guess, I was going to get some pretty good seats for those games. I also had the opportunity to get a couple of tickets for friends. Called my brother, 2 great seats. Do you think I gave them to my friends? No. You're probably thinking I sold them on eBay for some astronomical amount. Well, I didn't do that either because that would be disrespectful to my brother, to the city, to the team, to my family. I took those 2 tickets and traded them to my drug dealer for $1,000 of cocaine. Selling them on eBay was disrespectful, but trading them to my cocaine dealer was perfectly acceptable. How the mind works in addiction. My dealer shows up at my house. He was the Uber of drug dealers, showed up anywhere I needed. I was high class, he delivered. Hands me the big baggie of cocaine. I give him the tickets. I go running up to my home office. I dump it out on my desk, this cocaine kingdom. I wanted to go, put my face in it. Of course I have to do some, but cocaine has long stopped giving me the feeling of self-love and acceptance that I'd experienced when I did it in a hotel for the first time in 1987 and instantly became psychologically addicted to it. I would later become physically dependent. Then came the paranoia. Do I hear the cops outside? SWAT about to break down my door? Ooh, there's a lot of cocaine there. I can go to jail for a long time. I'm a lawyer, I know this. I take the cocaine, I hide it, I get in my car, I drive to Home Depot, I buy electrical faceplate outlets, a drill and a saw. I come back to my house, I go to each closet in my house upstairs, to the drywall with the drill, I drill through the drywall, I create a fake electrical outlet. I put the cocaine in all these little Ziploc baggies, I put it behind these fake electrical outlets, thinking I was the smartest lawyer ever. Like the DEA, the cops, and the drug dogs have never thought of that before. I do a little more, and again, just pain and shame, trying to recapture this feeling that was never going to come again. Well, maybe I just need to change dealers. Maybe I need to switch from Jack Daniels to tequila. Never. Maybe I have a problem. Paranoia again. I go back to each electrical outlet. I open them up, I take the cocaine, I put it back in the giant Ziploc baggie, I go to the bathroom and I flush it down the toilet. Now it was $960 worth of cocaine. Not an epiphany of recovery, paranoia. The next morning comes, and it so often happens when a perceived negative event in addiction gets in the rearview mirror. What an idiot! I flushed all that cocaine down the toilet. There's another game tonight. Another call to my brother. Sure, bro. Come get him. 2 more tickets. My dealer shows back up at my house. You did all that last night? I didn't want to say I flushed it down the toilet. Yes, I did it all last night. I am the king cocaine user in Dallas. More. Okay, here you go. Back up to my home office. Just pain and shame. Hide all the cocaine again. Try to recapture the high again. Take it back out. Put it back in the Ziploc baggie. Go back to that bathroom. Drop to my knees like I had done so many times before, hoping or praying for someone to take the pain away, the shame away, and flushed it down the toilet again. They say when Dallas flushes, it ends up in Houston, so some people in Houston got kind of high that night. The quote-unquote insanity of addiction. But addiction's not, it's insane. It's a biological process, it's a disease that affects so many of us, whether it's alcohol or drugs, so many in the legal profession. If you've ever seen the ABA, Betty Ford Hazelton report, about 20% to 21% of all lawyers are problem drinkers. Whew. If you're a millennial lawyer, it goes up to about 30 to 35%, 1 in 3. To put that in perspective, not long ago I read an article on CNN that said about 11.5 to 12% of people in the US are problem drinkers, however you want to classify that, quote unquote, alcoholics. They called it a crisis. 20%, 21%, 33%, that's a crisis. What's the legal profession? and we have similar rates of depression, eating disorders. And speaking of which, it wasn't just drugs for me. By the time I was 18 years old, as a freshman at Penn State University, in 1979, I developed anorexia. Yes, guys do get eating disorders, about 30%. How many people can raise your hand, no shame, am I the first guy you've ever seen stand up and talk about having an eating disorder? Yes, it's very stigmatized, not many guys do. By the time I was 20, later that year, I transitioned to bulimia. By the time I was 21 at Penn State, I was a full quote unquote alcoholic. Getting drunk in the morning, getting drunk just to get drunk or to go out at night just so I could socialize and feel good about myself. By the time I was 45, I had 3 failed marriages. I generally make a joke of that and say, one more, I get a free set of steak knives, but there we go over here. 2 trips to a psychiatric facility, the first one after a near suicide in 2005. Failed the bar exam twice, and we'll talk about that, both related to drugs and alcohol. And finally, recovery in 2007. How does that happen? How does somebody born in the baby boomer era, when social networking was playing dodgeball on the basketball court, when cell phones were 2 cups attached to strings, before Al Gore invented the internet, how does that happen? That person, that little boy in Pittsburgh, PA, becomes so disgusted with himself, hate himself so much, that he decides to end his own life at 44. Well, we have to go back to Pittsburgh, PA. I was the middle of 3 boys. Mark was the oldest, and Mark was what you might expect, was outgoing, entrepreneurial. Mark is the oldest, he's still alive. Entrepreneurial, selling this door to door, selling that door to door. I remember our newspaper went on strike, the Pittsburgh Press. He and his buddies went out to Cleveland, 200 some miles away, bought their newspapers, brought it back to Pittsburgh and sold them on a street corner. You knew what he was going to be, and he kind of became that a little bit more. My younger brother, Jeff, good looking, jock, nationally ranked wrestler, beer parties, prom, dates, all the things I associated with love and acceptance. And I was classic middle child syndrome, classic. Shy, withdrawn, internalized everything negative said to me and about me, and wore it like a skin-tight suit. And unfortunately, I also had a difficult relationship with my mom. And I'm going to tell you about this and tell you why I'm telling you. And I don't blame my mother for these things. Parents don't cause eating disorders. Parents don't cause addiction. There's a difference between cause and correlation. But home life can correlate with mental health issues later on. What does all this have to do with being a lawyer? Because in my experience, one of the worst things, what lawyers are terrible at when it comes to mental health, when it comes to wellness, what we are just awful at is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Allowing ourselves to explore the trauma of our lives and figure out not just deal with what we're going through at the moment, but deal with how we got there. We're taught to take advantage of vulnerability, right? In the legal profession. We don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And that's why I'm going to tell you about my relationship with my mother. There was a lot of fat shaming in my house. My mom would come home and I'd be eating Chef Boyardee ravioli right out of the can. Do they still have that? With the old style can opener. And she'd come home and she'd see me doing that and she'd say, as her mother said to her, and as her great-grandmother said to my grandmother, Brian, if you keep eating that way, you're going to be a fat pig. She had a very verbally and mentally abusive relationship with her mother. And when I came home with bad grades, Brian, you're really a dumb bunny. As her mother, her bipolar mother, would say to her. These were the tools my mother was given. I don't blame her for that. These are the things that not only lawyers deal with in their lives, but everyone. But lawyers bring them to a very high-stress profession where the trigger level may be this much room for error. You don't deal with it. But as you might imagine, not understanding Psych 101 as a little boy, as a teenager, I grew depressed to hear these things. And I grew to be a bigger Brian, and a bigger Brian. And it so often happens when kids change for what other kids perceive in the negative. Happens then, happens now in a much more insidious way with the internet. The bullying started. Back then, going viral meant 15 kids in the lunchroom knew about it, right? But it didn't hurt any less. Brian, you're a quote-unquote fat pig. Well, you must talk to my mom or this person or that person. And I developed this wall. I put this wall as a sad clown, the self-deprecating clown. Yeah, I know. I know I'm so fat. I'm headed to Sears to get a bra for my man boobs. But it hurt. It's the wall I put up as a sad clown. One night, my brother Mark came into my room, and he gave me a pair of shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. I know. Who here has seen Saturday Night Fever? Who here knows who John Travolta is? Put John Travolta right here with those shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. Put me right here. Stop. I was not John Travolta. Those pants fit Mark fine. I was a big kid, but I didn't care. I was going to get those pants on, jump up and down, spray the water bottle. My butt looked like 15 cats back there, but I wore them to school every day. And the kids make fun of me. One day I'm walking home with these kids from school. They start making fun of me. Next thing I know, they decide that I'm just too fat to wear those pants. The next thing I know, they physically assaulted me. Today, that would have 15 million YouTube views. They ripped those pants off me, they threw them in the street, down in my Fruit of the Loom tighty whities, my Keds tennis shoes, my tube socks, my Pittsburgh Pirates hat and t-shirt. Went on like they had done the funniest thing ever. I went out in the street and I gathered up the shreds, I put them like this, I waddled on home. People stopped, people gawked, no one stopped. I got home and I went down to this thing in Pittsburgh we have called basements. In Texas, we don't have basements. I doubt they have basements in Vegas. But in Pittsburgh, we have basements. And we have what were called incinerators in those basements. I put the pant shreds in the incinerator and hoped that I would incinerate my shame, the memory of those bullies who did it to me. And in my mind, those bullies were the popular kids, the kids going to the football games, the kids getting the dates to the proms, everything I wanted so badly, the first kiss, holding hands. And if I just hung around them, and took it, like the rid of like a fraternity initiation, just took it, they would include me. They say, Brian, you're one of us now. It doesn't work that way. But it was right around then that I remember thinking and looking in the mirror and seeing just this monster who would never be loved, who would never get married, who would never go on a date, would never hold a girl's hand. And I took that monster from that incinerator, put him in my suitcase, and took him on to Penn State with me. And that monster lived with me, went to class with me, slept with me. The only way I could get rid of that monster wasn't through binging and purging. I still saw him. It wasn't through restricting my food intake. I still saw him. I drank. I began drinking and drinking and drinking because the drunker I got, the less I would care about that monster in the suitcase. And it would stay in the suitcase and not follow me around. And it wasn't a monster, it was a little Brian. I was able to graduate from Penn State. I was a criminal justice major. I wanted to be a police officer. That would have worked out well. I'd have been the first guy in the evidence room trading out the mannitol for the cocaine. No doubt in my mind. I'm sitting in the placement office at Penn State looking through police officer jobs, and there are these two guys talking. They're talking about going to law school. They're from Pittsburgh. They're talking about going to Pitt Law. And I'm listening, and the bells start going off in my head. Ding, ding, ding. Not that I wanted to be a lawyer. I never thought about being a lawyer before in my life. Not that I wanted to change the world, make a difference, make some money. The bells were, I can stay in school for 3 more years, and I can binge and purge. I can drink. I'd also become exercise bulimic, which is running 10 to 20 miles a day just to offset the calories. There were some days I was so dehydrated I couldn't get out of bed from all this damage to my body. And it made perfect sense to me. So I went on to Pitt Law. I did well enough on the LSAT, believe it or not. And I got into Pitt Law. And I realized that that really wasn't a recipe for doing well in law school. And I graduated Pitt Law by the skin of my teeth. I did my moot court drunk. I went to class drunk. Just like at Penn State, I ran instead of going to class. I remember one particular class, a civil procedure class. How many lawyers do we have here? So, okay. I'm in a civil procedure class. I had been out all night drinking. I stank. I'd been wearing the same clothes. I sit next to him. I sign, say, dude, come on, just go home. Forgot my books. Trying to get low, get low, get low. Don't call on me. Civil procedure. Mr. Cuban. Oh. What do you think about this jurisdiction problem on the board? Professor, I'm just not. Call on someone else and want prepared on my books. The Socratic method at work. Well, Mr. Cuban, when you say you're not prepared, do you mean you are not prepared to answer this question, or you're just not prepared? Professor, I'm just going to someone else. Well, when you say go on to someone else, do you mean go on to someone else on this example, or go on to someone else on this example? I muttered an expletive under my breath, got up and bolted. Now, I know I'm not the first person to mutter an expletive under the breath to a professor in law school, but my voice carries. One day I will ask that professor if he heard me. I haven't worked up the nerve to even do that yet, even though I've spoken in my law school. But I did manage to graduate way down in the rankings, way down. I have a recurring dream that the dean of the law, I'm going to get my diploma, and the dean of the law school goes, psych! And you wake up going like this, trying to grab it. The funny thing is I was so ashamed I didn't even go to graduation. Just mail it to me. Just mail it, it's all good. Still carrying that monster right through law school. I decided I'm gonna move to Dallas, Texas. Packed up the monster, packed up what luggage I had, $200 to my name, took a Greyhound bus to Dallas, because my brother Mark had lived there, my brother Jeff lived there. Their love could save me, if only love could cure mental health. I moved in with them. I have to take the Texas bar exam. Brought that suitcase to Fleabag Hotel in Fort Worth, Texas for the first time of the Texas bar exam. My study aids were some Barbie books I borrowed that day, 3.5 ounces of cocaine, a fifth of Jack Daniels, and a liter of Tab. Yes, I used to love Tab. I failed. I failed again for similar reasons the next time. And when I finally passed, I went to work as a fully licensed Texas attorney who was also a quote-unquote alcoholic, who now was also addicted to cocaine after doing my first line and finally looking in the mirror and saying, man, I love that guy. Cocaine did it for me, even if it was only for 15 seconds. But I had to have that 15 seconds again and again and again. They say cocaine's a hell of a drug until it isn't. And we forget those of us who have been through it, we forget all the times that it wasn't. And there were a lot. But I was addicted to it. I was doing cocaine in the state courthouse. I was doing cocaine in the federal courthouse. Didn't you know that was wrong? Didn't you know you could go to jail? Yes. What is addiction? Obsessive compulsive drug seeking in the face of known consequences. It doesn't mean you don't know it's wrong. I knew it was wrong. I just couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop because I wanted to keep that monster at bay. I wanted to look in the mirror and say, look, open that suitcase and look at that guy. Look at that guy. Everyone loves that guy. My mother loves that guy, and she does love me. And she did love me. And still does. And we have a wonderful relationship. So, I went to jail, got arrested for DWI, and in the summer of 2005, I became so hopeless that I decided to end my life, and it was very close. My brothers came into my house, and I had a .45 automatic on my nightstand, and they took me in my first of 2 trips down to Green Oaks at this psychiatric facility in Dallas, kicking and screaming. I'm a lawyer, I got down there, I knew what to say. I'm not a danger to myself, I'm not a danger to my others, much to their chagrin. They couldn't hold me. So we did what we call the Cuban rehab. We're gonna take you home, take your car keys, stay in your house for 2 weeks, everything's gonna be okay. Doesn't work, but my family's no different than anyone else, trying to figure this out as they go on the fly. My only two thoughts were, one, no problem, my drug dealer delivers. Two, now they know. Now they really know when I have to distance. And I did distance. From my nephews, from my brothers, from my father, from my mother, and only hung out with the people who understood me, the people who got me, the people I did cocaine with and drank with. They truly understood me. And then it all came to a head in 2007. I was out one night, and I met somebody. The uncomfortable part for my wife. We started dating, and I was pretty good at hiding all this stuff, though she had her suspicions. Easter weekend 2007, she went away for the weekend, she came back, I'm in bed, she's looking down at me, she's trying to figure out if she walked in the right house. I'm trying to think of what lie I could tell her. There's drugs everywhere, alcohol. 2 days had passed, I'd had a blackout. Back to Green Oak Psychiatric Facility for the second time. And I'm standing in the parking lot, and a couple things occurred to me in that parking lot, Easter weekend 2007. One, that she was gonna leave, I'd leave. She didn't, she stood by me, and we dated for over a decade, and now we've been married for over 2 years. So things don't always work out, but they can, but I had to do the work. I had to repair the broken trust, I had to repair myself. And the other thing that occurred to me was that there wouldn't be a third trip back, I'd be dead. So the next day I walked into my psychiatrist's office. So I walked into my psychiatrist's office and finally started getting honest with them. I walked into 12-step. And when I went into 12-step, I didn't know if I was an alcoholic. I didn't know what that meant, or alcohol use disorder as the clinical term is. Here's what I did know. I wanted to wake up one day and look in the mirror and love that person. I wanted to wake up one day and open that suitcase and that little monster is gone. And if going into 12-step, AA is the most well-known, would give me that, I would go. And I went, and I went, and I went, and I'm still in therapy today. I see a psychiatrist every week. I take antidepressants for my clinical depression. And this coming April, one day at a time, I'll have 12 years in recovery from eating disorders, from drugs and alcohol. And during all of that time in recovery, and looking back at the legal profession, and now which I am finally out of as a practicing lawyer, following my passion, rather than following that teenager sitting in that placement office who didn't want to do it and went for all the wrong reasons. And it's funny, but not for maybe my reasons, but you would not believe how many law students I talked to who never wanted to be there in the first place. They went for all the wrong reasons. Their parents' reasons, these reasons, that reason, those reasons. And I look back and I can see why there are so many of us sitting in front of recruiters with mental health issues that no one knows about, that we're not going to divulge, and for a lot of legal reasons that the experts will get into, that will never get talked about, who lose their license. You're all saying, how does this guy still have his license? Hasn't been disbarred. Haven't been disbarred, wasn't suspended, but it wasn't for lack of trying, okay? And I say that tongue in cheek, but it's a real consequence when we wait for consequences to catch up to the problem. And here's what I think possibly could have made a difference, but I don't know, and what they'll talk about more. If somebody, no one ever said to me until the consequences caught up to the problem, you're struggling, what can we do? Even if we don't know what to do. So I want to leave you all with this. I call it the 2-ask rule. Because we have a responsibility, whether it's the recruiting profession, the legal profession, to take care of each other. When you see somebody struggling, you don't have to know one thing about mental health or psychology to just tap them on the shoulder and say, you're okay. Are you okay? And in those few seconds, after they say, mind your own business, or whatever they're going to say, and those words, I get that, I'm still alive, say, okay, but if you or ever want to, you can talk to me. And that's more of a statement, but I call it the 2-ask rule. And it is not unheard of for in those few seconds for a mind to change. But I'll tell you even more importantly, it's about repetition. Because when we take care of each other, it may not be what happens in this moment, it may be what happens in the next moment when someone else says it. Or the next moment 3 people out when that person says it. Repetition matters. So don't worry about whether you're the first or the third. Always assume you're the first. Because somebody may say you mind your own business, but I'll tell you what, for every person who's told me that, the person who says, what can you do? What can I do? It makes it all worth it. Thank you.